All right, continuing with the theme of in the French Revolution, it ends with Napoleon. So, if you remember from the last video, Napoleon is a military ruler. He was in the military during the French Revolution, and he was like, man, this is cool. And he gets a lot of clout and a lot of reputation for being a great leader. He was a really, really good tactician. And he takes power after a coup d'etat, which is a military takeover, after revolutionary leaders go too far. So, one too many people sent to the guillotine. It's too much. The military is unhappy. The people are still unhappy. So he's like, I think I could do a better job. So he uses the military to dispose of Robespierre and Charles Danton and takes over for himself. And he restores order after the chaos of revolutions. This is what people are asking. Like, they're tired of riots. They're tired of all the crazy. They're tired of people going to the guillotine and being scared for your life if you speak out. It's not freedom of speech. This is not enlightenment. And he just puts order back in place. He was like, I'm going to take control. I'm going to be a consul. I will ask your opinion. So it's a form of democracy under him for a little while at least. He issues one of the first things he does is issue the Napoleonic Code, which is going to eliminate the estate system. So he's trying to streamline the problems that they had before. So it's not so much that they hated the king, it's that they hated the class problem. So he's like, hey, we're not going to have estates. Everybody's going to pay taxes. The church is not that important. I took this power myself. I didn't need God to do it. So you're out. Everybody pays taxes to me. Everybody gets what they need. So the estate system is gone. The Napoleonic Code also had to do with how, some people had to, let me back up on that, sorry. The fairness of laws. Like, no longer could a noble just kill people for fun and have a very minimal fine, or even accident and have a minimal fine. Like, they had the same set of rules as every other person. He really streamlined that. The downside of that is he did basically say women are property of their husbands. So we took a step forward for everybody but the females, which is, in my opinion, sucks. So, yeah. He does simplify the laws in France. He's going to streamline everything. It's really nice. And then he's like, hey, since I'm a military leader, let's keep going. So he goes in and takes a lot of the land that they lost to Prussia in the 7 Years' War. So Prussia had taken all of this. Now they took it back. And he's pushing up here and over here. So you can see French allies as the Austrian Empire, Norway, Denmark, Prussia, which is super small right now. Satellites, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Confederate of the Rhine, which is, once again, it's just going to become Germany one day. And all of those people it says satellites because they're going to owe fealty to Napoleon. Like, he's like, hey, I'm not going to call you France. You don't have to follow all of my rules. You can keep your leader, but you're going to pay taxes to me. So he's basically starting a French empire. And the only people against him still are Portugal, Sicily, Sardinia, Russia, Sweden, and Great Britain. So this is problematic. So problematic. He owns the majority of the continent. Not much people are going to stand up to him. The only people that are really standing up are the people that, they were exceptionally powerful in the last 20 years. And then they have access to most of the trade routes. So people that can stand against him financially are about the only way that you're staying functional at this time. If you need France's ports, if you need trade through France, you're not going to do very well, which is why their satellites are allies. His empire is fantastic. He's first consul. He doesn't call himself an emperor, but he does call himself the first consul for a long time. And he uses a very simple system to keep England from invading. So England's the only power at the time. Remember, Russia is still kind of figuring it out. Spain lost their power because of Britain, England. And that's the last person that France really needs to conquer to solidify their control of Europe. But instead of making people angry by, overtaxing them and sending them to war to die, he uses the continental system, which is basically, we're not going to trade with you. Like, we're going to blockade you. We're not going to let supplies on your island, and we're not going to let you trade off of your island. So our navy has to be better than your navy. What's going to fail is when he decides he's going to invade Russia. So this is the theme of history. So once again, I have a couple themes in this class. Land equals money equals power. Proofreading saves lives. And don't invade Russia. Period. That's it. That's really the phrase. Don't invade Russia. So he tries to invade Russia. It fails horribly. devastates his army because, they're cold, they're hungry, they're dying. He ends up, after he runs away from Russia and ends up fighting the Britain, the Russia, and Sweden at the Battle of Trafalgar. I don't have a cool British accent. It doesn't sound as cool when I say it. Trafalgar. So he ends up losing there, and they put him on a really tiny island off of Italy, and they thought that would keep him there. So I didn't have this in notes, but it makes me laugh a lot. So they put him on this little island about a mile off the coast. Well, that sucker swam about a mile and got back into Italy, got back to France, raised up an army, and 100 days later, they're fighting at the Battle of Waterloo. And if you can read, you already know he gets defeated at Waterloo. But darn it, he tried. I mean, they exiled him. He swam, he went back, he raised an army, and then it just wasn't enough. So the British beat him at Waterloo, and he gets placed in exile, this time on St. Helena, which is about halfway between Africa and the Caribbean. So 1,000 miles to swim in either direction. He ends up dying there. Later, they're going to move his body back to France. But, yeah, that was, I think, a lot cooler story than just being like, yeah, he lost at Waterloo. Because there was a whole, he lost twice. One at Trafalgar, one at Waterloo. Both times exiled. One time he wasn't getting off that island. So that's Napoleon. And it ends up being the end at the Congress of Vienna. So we'll get to that next time.